All right, welcome in, guys, on this Thursday edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show, powered by WagerTalk.com. I'm Joe Raineri, SportsGrid.com. Ralph Michaels over at Wager Talk, and it is all about college hoops, especially tonight. Over 60 games on the card. Great night last night, too. A lot of the games that we talked about here on the show yesterday. It was fun, Ralph. I mean, I got to tell you, I never in a million years thought that I'd ever watch Purdue score 104 points ever in one game. Maybe if you combine the games, but yeah, there were a couple of head scratch. Now, it wasn't an upset because they were the favorite, but my word, Ralph, I didn't see that coming last night.
Well, we talk about tempo, and sometimes teams just get in a groove. I mean, they're just a slow-paced team, but when shots start going down and Iowa keeps pressing the pace and you keep running with them, and good things can come of it. So I mean, once you get in that groove and you have success the first 10 minutes of the game, well, guess what? You're going to start running as well. And
damn straight.
104 points is let's see, going back to last year when they had Carson Edwards. I think 92 was their high against 95 against Ohio, 99 against Tennessee in the tournament, but that was an overtime game. So, again, a different team, but it shows you when you're at home, Iowa, a strong offensive team, not a strong defensive team. You get in a groove, you're at home, shots start going down, it gets to be contagious, and that's what happens.
That's exactly it. It was a beatdown there, but there were some, a couple of games last night, Ralph, and obviously the biggest, Vanderbilt winning for the first time in I think this year in the SEC as they take down LSU. How about that? 99-90, Ralph. And I don't see any asterisk, which means that was not an overtime game.
Nope. The Incarnate Word game was, but yeah, I didn't see the Vandy. I would have picked 20 other games that had potential for an upset before I picked Vandy to do it. And let's point out, we have our running joke on Houston Baptist, but it shows again when they win and they start playing a little defense, the game may be going under the total, but they got their second win in conference play last night, pulling a small upset as well.
Yeah, it was a bit crazy last night as far as upsets went, and some covers like we told you there. Purdue, Ralph, at the top, Iowa. Yeah, they were a 4.5 point favorite. Now they covered by 31.5, so they pretty good. And also, a couple of other games. Butler and Villanova, one of the best games of the night there, Ralph. Really a battle there between those two Big East teams. Came down to a three-pointer, and they just kept scoring, Ralph. Talk about two defensive teams. Yeah, there weren't a lot of defense yesterday.
Yeah, well, again, it's when teams get hot and you start shooting well, those are the results. And anytime you're facing an under, you have to have multiple things go right for you. You have to have pace, and you have to have teams play decent defense, and you have to have mediocre offensive nights. But we talk about defenses. Both Butler and Villanova have good defenses. But if you look at their numbers, their offensive efficiency numbers are actually better than their defensive numbers. Yeah. So again, it's while we expect a low-scoring game with the pace, both teams are very good offensive teams.
Right.
We look past that so much because of the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. It was crazy, and of course there were some performances last night that were pretty good too, as well, Ralph. And you had Drake taking on Bradley, a game that we talked about a little bit. Georgia, Anthony Edwards again. If I have to watch Georgia blow another second-half lead, Ralph, I swear to God I'm going to go out of my mind. Yep. There's only so much the kid can do. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And Maxwell Evans put up 31. His high prior to last night in conference play was 23. So No, actually, his high for the season was 16 points before the 31 points he put up last night. So, Maxwell Evans went 7 of 12 from 3-point land by himself.
Wow.
That's how you get to 31 points, and that's how you have 2 people score 30, and that's how you pull off an upset against LSU.
Yep, that's exactly how it happens there. Great effort across the board there. And tonight also loaded card here, Ralph. Opportunities galore for some upsets and some covers. So why don't we talk about a trend and an angle here that you've got tonight while we get ready to dive into the market and see who some of the what games are moving and what games are shaking at this point.
Absolutely. Let's look at, some old favorites keep popping up, and I'm going to say them again. You guys may be familiar with them. Tennessee Martin, 22-3 over under, Joe. That's to Houston Baptist and New Orleans type numbers there. UL Monroe, this has gone back 4 years. They are now 39-12 at home. They just play better at home. They score better, and the games go over. The Zags play tonight. They're 16-2 over under their last 18 games. And Hampton has gone over 10 straight times. Couple ATS records. UC Davis now has covered 9 straight games on the road. And, you look at those Davis games, their average line has been plus 9.3. They're getting 11.5 tonight, I think, against Riverside. They've actually won 3 of those games outright. They're 3-6 straight up, 9-0 ATS. Tulsa at home is playing elite defense. That's a team I like tonight. They're 1-11 over under. And North Texas. I'm going to talk about a situational play coming up in a little bit, Joe. Remember, we've got conflicting things here because North Texas is 13-2-1 against the spread their last 16 games.
Well, it's interesting, Ralph. Northern, a couple of these games here that saw some early action here today. One of them is Oakland taking on Northern Kentucky. This came out as a 11.5-point Northern Kentucky home favorite, but boy, Oakland got an awful lot of love early on here, dropped it all the way down to 10. I know Ken Palm's got him winning by, I think, 10, Ralph, if I saw, but I don't know. There seems to be a lot of Oakland double-digit road conference dog kind of value going on here because they continue to hammer Oakland. And when you look at the records, you're like, one team's won 8 games, one team's won 16. But, yeah, no, the pros seem to have drawn a line in the sand with this one.
Oakland burned me last week, beating Detroit. And, they're 2-3 their last 5 road games. So they've played well. And, I'm going to go ahead and just bring in that situational play, Joe.
Sure.
It doesn't apply to this, but it's, when you look at, this is home dogs. Obviously, Oakland's a road dog.
Right.
But when you look at home dogs of +7 or more that are off a win, when you look at November, December, and January, I tweeted this out to get the exact records. You can look at it on my Twitter follow. They were 49% against the spread. But home dogs of 7 or more off a straight-up win in February are over 61% against the spread. So these teams keep trying hard.
Right.
It's late in the year. We have these favorites getting banged up more and more. You're trying to get some other players in to get ready for the postseason. So big home dogs and even big dogs in general, when you get later in the year, they actually perform better against the spread. So something to keep an eye on. But, Oakland's a team that they went through a bad spell there. And, I see a lot of those back to 10.5s now. So we're getting some buyback where, the whole line move was maybe a point.
Right.
I'm going to jump in, and one line move I don't understand was Tulsa open 5. That's down to 2.5 and 3. And I even had a couple guys text me, they like Tulsa as well. Did I read something why that line dropped? And again, just because the line dropped doesn't know why I know. I don't agree with the line move. I'm on the Tulsa side, and I appreciate the extra couple points that I don't have to lay.
Yeah, I don't. The total's a little baffling to me too, Ralph. I know those two teams are have been very profitable to the under, but we just watched this game. a couple of weeks ago. They scored 154 points against one another. So that was in UConn 79-75. And it just seems like, wow, it did get a little bump, opened up at 126, and, it got hit up a little bit, but, I don't know. It just, I've seen these two teams play before, too, and they don't mind going at each other here in conference play.
Well, I do power ratings for the past month. Mm-hmm. Tulsa is the number one most efficient defense in the country.
It's crazy, right?
And, Joe, let me correct you a little bit. That first game, they scored 32 points in overtime. It was 61 each going into regulation.
Regulation, gotcha. Yeah.
So, perhaps I even like the under in this game.
Yeah.
Tulsa's a slow pace. Tulsa at home is absolutely elite defense. Connecticut does not have the offense. Again, you're going to hear me talk Tulsa a little later in the show when the segment about best bets comes up. But
perfect.
I actually like the under as well. So we disagree a little bit with the total.
What about, and actually I think this is, let me just double check here. Yeah, that's going to be a game we're going to talk about here. How about Stanford, Utah there, Ralph? Stanford snapped a little 3-game losing streak that they had there. It was a 70-60 win over Oregon. Utah, and kind of up and down. I think they've dropped 2 straight, 6 of their last 8. But this line doesn't make any sense now, does it, Ralph? I mean, Utah now is a -1 favorite, or pick them even in some place. What are we missing?
Well, let me ask, which way do you think it should be?
I think Stanford should be the favorite in this game.
Oh, you want to make Stanford a road favorite?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, my problem is they've only won 2 road games this year. They won at San Jose and they won at UCLA. Granted, they went to overtime against USC. I like Stanford, but I think the line is right because I would be leery to make them a road favorite. The defense is playing great, but we've seen their offense struggle mightily. I mean, Cal doesn't count because Cal has a good defense, but Oregon State scoring 63 at home,
right?
Against an Oregon State squad. So, Utah, again, you look at hindsight and, I just can't get out of my mind that like you said, Utah's 2-8.
Right.
2 of their wins was that Washington game where they trailed by 5 with 30 seconds to go and beat me in a big play. So it's just one of those seasons I'm having when you go back and look and you say, wow, that Washington play was pretty good. Look at the way Utah's playing.
Yes.
But, hey, a flagrant foul and a technical, and boom, that's what happens when you're at home.
Are you buying this one, Ralph? Because this line has moved a lot here. Are you buying UCLA yet? Because they opened up as looks like a 6.5 point let's see, even 7-point dog on the road to Arizona State, but it's down to 5 now. And UCLA, winners of 4 of their last 5. Cronin heading to Hurley there to take it on in the Pac-12. You buying UCLA?
I am buying UCLA, but I'm not buying them tonight with the line coming down.
Yeah.
They needed physicality. Cronin's put physicality into their mix. They're clearly not to where Cincinnati is, but, he's only had the 1 recruiting class. Some of their numbers right now, they're learning how to play physical.
Right. And
their scoring is way down because of their pace, not because of the defense they're playing. So that's the thing you have to look at. When their defense comes to match their pace, they are going to be a team that we're going to see a whole bunch of no totals when UCLA and Cal and Stanford start playing each other. But this year the defense is improving, but we see the lower scoring games because they are number 300. They're about number 300 as far as pace of play.
Perfect. All right, so let's talk about a couple of these featured games that you got on the card here, Ralph. One of them happens to be a dog I don't understand, which could very well be my dog of the day. But let's start with Cincinnati, Wichita State in this one. Definitely a battle. I know a lot of people are looking forward to seeing here, Ralph. And the line is moved a little bit here over the morning hours, and Cincinnati heading into to Wichita State. They opened up as a 3-point favorite at home, Wichita, but it's up to 5.5 in some places here, Ralph. What do you think? Is there not enough credit being given to Cincinnati here?
Well, you look at how well they're playing, from a first-year head coach. Couple losses, the Tulane loss and the Memphis loss on the road has me thinking, well, I don't know if I want to back Cincinnati. If you're studying college basketball day in and day out, and, you're reading a lot of newspapers, and there's certain coaches that you start to know if they tell you the truth about a team or if they're blowing smoke up your behind. When Greg Marshall talks about his team, he's very realistic about it. Right. And, reading either the Wichita paper or, one of the Kansas papers today, Marshall talked about how they really were disappointed with that Tulsa loss. Mm-hmm. The team responded with some great practices on Monday and Tuesday. So that has me not, even though my numbers would lean with Cincinnati, I put that much into that quote, knowing what he said, knowing how the team responded, knowing that the team practiced well, knowing that when Greg Marshall says those kind of things from past history, I tend to believe him. So from that case, it's a no play for me because I think Wichita State will be ready to go and give Cincinnati all they can handle tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you, too. And I know 2 of the last 3 have gone over the number here, Ralph. And that was, that was Whitmick Cronin there at the helm in Cincinnati. Much slower pace, a lot of defense. So I anticipated they tried to speed it up just a little bit here in Cincinnati. Now, I think it's a low number, too, in the 133, 134 total. I wouldn't at all be shocked if we're looking at an over in this game either.
Yeah, again, Cincinnati is not the team they were with Cronin in the 300s. They're middle of the pack. They're 170, so they are playing faster. Wichita State also plays faster, but unlike Butler Villanova, with these 2 teams, the defensive efficiency is much better than the offensive efficiency. So you do have more defensive-minded teams, even though the pace is a little higher. Again, you're going to get fewer shot opportunities because of the defense.
Yep, yeah. Both averaging around 72 points per game in that one on the season, guys. And what about this one, Ralph? A lot of people circled this one right off the bat as a Pac-12 matchup. 10 points for the USC Trojans on the road against Arizona. Now, Arizona starts the year off, Ralph, 9-0, and they're back. All of a sudden, they're 6-6 here now in their last 12. USC's only had 1 bad loss, Ralph. That was to Temple, I think, back in November. 10 points on the road in this one. They're 5-1 against the number in their last 6 on the road. Like, what are we missing here in this game, Ralph?
Well, you're missing that. USC's a top 40 or top 50 team, and while Arizona, I still have Arizona as a top 15 in my power ratings. You look at Arizona's losses: Baylor, Gonzaga, Oregon, Arizona State, all away from home. Zags were at home. They lose to St. John's by a couple. This game's going to come down to rebounding. Yeah. It's Arizona is the number 1 defensive rebounding team in the Pac-12, and USC is the number 1 offensive rebounding team. So it's going to be a great battle when USC shoots, fighting for that glass between those 2 teams. An interesting bit of information, and part of the reason Arizona struggled against good teams, there's only 1 team in college basketball, 353 teams. Only 1 team has their top 3 scorers as freshmen, and that's Arizona.
Yeah.
You have your point guard, you have your shooting forward, and you have your center all as freshmen, and your 3 leading scorers. Well, guess what? When you're starting earlier in the year and you're playing quality defenses like those teams lost to, you're going to lose some games. So Arizona's going through it where, I just look at them and I don't see a horrible loss there. Probably the loss to Oregon State on the road is the worst loss they have. Mm-hmm. But you can also say those kids went up to Eugene on Thursday. They battled Oregon into overtime, and then a day later they're playing at Oregon State, and it was a letdown situation. So I think Arizona is a team that is just going to continue to prove with these three young kids. They're going to learn to win some of those close games that they lost. But with that said, I think USC can keep it within this number. They blew out Washington State by 17. They blew out Colorado at home by 21, and they beat Utah by 26. But USC to me is much more of a caliber than Colorado, although Colorado is such a home-road dichotomy. With the rebounding USC has, I don't have a pick on this game. It was nowhere near my card, but my power ratings would probably be about 1.5 lower. So that would have me leaning with the Trojans.
And it's the under also seems to be, you mentioned defensive rebounding, second chance point might not be there, but our USC alone under 8-3 in their last 11 overall, 4-1 in their last 5 on the road. It's a 140-141 number here, Ralph. The under seems to be a place I would look as well.
Well, I can never argue when you have two freshman point guards.
Right.
Each side with Anderson for USC. If there's any pressure at all, I think those freshmen, right about now, when you get to February and you're halfway through your conference schedule, many freshmen stop becoming freshmen, especially those that have started every game.
Yep.
But there still is something to be said about closing out games and low-scoring games, and when things are a little bit tighter. So, again, I had no issues with the underthought, and again, my slightest of lean to the Trojans.
Yeah, I mean, +10 under. It all makes sense there, guys. So interesting battles here tonight. Conference battles on the card tonight. Ralph, how about dogs? Is there a dog here that stuck out to you at all?
Boy, there's a bunch of dogs.
Yeah, it really is.
I am. I'm not going to go with a huge dog, but I'm going to go with a dog that's likely on my card. I'm just about to finalize my card, and it's game 621, Towson plus 2.5 against Delaware. And, I look at my numbers, and, when I go through my 30-day numbers, I'm looking at Towson. They're 6-1 their last 7 plays. They've won 3 road games. I have them with a better offensive number. I had them with a better defensive number. They're going to slow the pace, and I'm getting points with it. I actually make Towson a favorite in the game. So, although it's a short dog, I think there's certainly value with the dog.
Maybe you can tell me, Ralph. I'm looking at the Big Sky here tonight, and I'm looking at Eastern Washington, who has been absolutely on fire, certainly in conference play here. They started off slow the season, 7-4, but they've been rolling in conference, Ralph, 8-2 in conference play. They've also been pretty decent on the road. And they're on their way. They're going to Montana here, Ralph, and they're getting 2.5, even 3 in some in many spots here. I know you've talked about Montana in the past, but to me, I really like the value Eastern Washington brings to the table in this game tonight.
Well, I was on Eastern Washington the first game against Montana.
Right.
And they shit the bed.
Yes, they
did. There's no question. I mean, these two are the top 2 teams in the Big Sky.
Yep.
The media picked one of them to win. The coaches picked the other to win. Montana's been the favorite for the last few years. Eastern Washington was so banged up. They got healthy at the end of last year. They made a great run to get there. I have no problems with the play, but I'll tell you why it's not on my card is because I'm looking at the series history and just the last game. Montana, when Montana came here last year, they were laying 6. Montana laid 6.5 at Eastern Washington last year.
Okay.
Then they laid 14 at home. Then they laid 5.5 in a neutral setting. So to me, the number's a little cheap that Montana at home, you have the team that is leading the conference.
Right.
Now, granted, Eastern has revenge, but, you've heard me talk about revenge where it doesn't mean that much. Again, I think it's going to be a great game. It really could have been a featured game. I mean, for Big Sky fans,
absolutely.
It is the top two teams meeting. And, I clearly think, while Northern Colorado's playing good and could get a run in the Big Sky tournament, I don't think there's any question that Montana and Eastern Washington have an 80% chance of being one of the teams that go dancing. So this will go a long way to getting the number one seed. So I am just going to enjoy and watch the game and root for our viewers because you gave out Eastern Washington. No argument with the play. I'm just letting you know, value-wise, I think it's a point or two short because of what they've done in the past.
Yeah, I think they're pretty evenly matched, and certainly as far as form goes, Eastern Washington really did a great job turning it around. So it's going to be a fun game. You're absolutely right to watch. There's a bunch of them here on the card tonight, Ralph. So we've got a couple of dogs. Let's get a couple of best bets out there now. What game have you circled here that you're going to give out as your best play?
Well, as I said, I'm going back to the Golden Hurricane.
Love it.
And there's times when I just don't get a line move, and this is it. They've reeled off 6 straight wins. They beat Houston at home. They beat Memphis at home. They beat Wichita at home. They beat UConn on the road. This game opens 5. Now it's down to 2.5.
Yeah.
I told you about Tulsa's defense, and then you have a UConn team that's 1-5 their last 6 games, and their only win was against a Temple team that's struggling. So I am baffled, and I am going to have Tulsa on my card. It's going to be my top play tonight. I'm going to tell you that watching it. So I'm going to live and die by my numbers. I trust my numbers. I trust my eyes. And unless someone knows something that's not in press, where 2 starters aren't playing because they're going to be suspended tonight, then Tulsa, to me, the line is 7 points off.
7 points off. Wow. Okay, so that's a big swing right there, folks. You guys are hearing that, right? So, I love the Tulsa angle in here too, but I'm going to go with a total tonight here, Ralph, as the best bet because I watched these two teams play a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about how a lot of people don't realize what kind of battle and rivalry this really is, but Murray State and Belmont, round 2 here, Ralph.
Great. Yeah.
They're going now, while Murray State getting 5.5, 6 points is certainly interesting, I don't think this comes anywhere close to hitting the under. I think these two teams are going to put up some points here, Ralph. I would not at all be surprised if this game lands in the 80s for both of them. The total is 150. I think there's plenty of value here in absolutely backing the over in this game. I lean Murray State again, but I do think that this game's going to see some points once again.
I'm just going to throw one more thing into that Ohio Valley mix.
Yep.
Probably one of the biggest surprises to me and the entire country is Austin Peay being 10-0 in Ohio Valley Conference. Murray State is 10-0 in the conference. Austin Peay is 10-0. Eastern Kentucky is 8-2. And make no mistake, Belmont is the best team talent-wise, but they are 7-3 in conference play, sitting in 4th place. Mm-hmm. I don't think they've ever been in 4th place in the conference in the last decade. So, one handicapping tool that I really like, I use it in football a lot. I use it in football much more. Mm-hmm. But if you are and you have the better team looking up to their opponent in the standings, it's just a powerful motivator. I mean, we don't often look at standings like they do, but, winning the regular season conference title is a big deal.
Yep.
I don't think Belmont can get that because I don't think the other 3 teams can have a combined 8 losses to get there. But Them being fourth, I believe, has to be a big motivator for them, especially playing an undefeated team in conference play that, they lost to by 10 points in game number 1.
Yep. Yeah, it's a big swing too, but it's points are coming, guys, tonight. This is going to be a fun game, just like the first one was. So there you got it, guys. You got some key plays tonight. You got some great matchups, over 60 on the board. Plenty of opportunities for you guys, obviously, to make it happen. Don't forget, over at sportsmemo.com, you can make it happen. 30 days right now. Any capper you want there, use the code JR210, $210 every play for 30 days. Anybody you like over at sportsmemo.com, but make sure you head over to Ralph's page as well, wagertalk.com. You can get there and see at his plays. He's going to be dropping them in there, guys. Time to head over to wagertalk.com, get over to the Cal Sports page, and get yourself a couple of winning picks here tonight, Ralph. It's going to be a hell of a card, brother. So enjoy the night, enjoy the plays. We'll be rooting Tulsa on. We'll be getting this going, and then we'll be back and break it all down, get everyone ready for the weekend.
Yep, well, let's let the Racers and the Bruins race through the high-scoring game.
Damn it.
Joe, we'll talk to you in 23, bud.
You got it, guys. Good luck to your plays, guys. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.